The second season of The Last of Us has officially finished. Of course, show ran by Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann, starring Pedro Pascal, Bella Ramsey, and Isabela Merced. This season is very much inspired by the second Last of Us game, The Last of Us Part 2. And essentially, the story is Joel and Ellie return once again, living in Jacksonville, Wyoming, when the past catches up to them and consequences must arise for actions. So overall, we're going to talk about this show, and if you as a Christian should watch it right now. Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. I'm your host Tim, and we exist to help Christians live in the world, not of the world, by utilizing our convictions in the movies and shows we watch. The Last of Us Season 2 is rated TVMA for extreme violence, brutality, action, and of course a lot of coarse language and a lot of other stuff. So we're going to talk about any convictions you may have in watching this season, any theological themes present within the season, as well as wrap it up with my personal thoughts on Season 2. With that being said, let's dive into the Christian Conviction Meter. In case this is your first time here, the Christian Conviction Meter is a series of 5 convictions that are areas that may distract or hinder your relationship with Jesus. Ultimately, it's a guide and tool and resource to help you find good movies to watch based on your convictions, or in this case, a good show to watch. So without further ado, let's head into our first category. And kicking things off with violence and gore, if you have seen the last season of The Last of Us, or you are familiar with both seasons, this one is no different. The brutality and violence is very, very high. There is a lot of blood in this series. There's a lot of death in this season. There is just a greater sense of brutality in this season in particular. It feels like the action is really elevated in a lot of different ways. Different gunfights, you have some knife fights, you have a lot of stabbings, cuts, scrapes, bruises, you have some torture scenes in here as well. Just a greater sense of brutality. On top of that, there also is some characters who unfortunately lose limbs. There's a character who's beaten within an inch of his life, and you see all the cuts and scrapes upon him. It's just a really brutal season. I mean, just in every sense of the word. There are limbs where they're not supposed to be. There's insides that are not supposed to be where they are. Like, it's an intense season. Like, it really is going for that kind of gross factor in a lot of different ways. Definitely did work. This is going to be a 5 out of 5. Our next category is lust, and this is a much stronger area than the last season. First and foremost, there is some nudity contained within this season, particularly in a torture scene where a guy is full frontal nudity. So that is something to keep in mind. Along with that, there is a bigger presence of LGBTQ plus content. So it's not just some flags here and there, as some clips have shown, but there is a full-fledged relationship that happens in this show, so much so that there's some kissing and really passionate kissing. One of it leads into a X scene that, while there is no nudity shown specifically by the characters, a character does reach into the below the belt area. So that is something to keep in mind. That is contained within episode 4 of this season. There also is a little bit of like partial nudity, particularly by a character who takes off the back of her shirt. There's like some scrapes and stuff that are seen and just kind of helping to wash off, but there is no specific nudity shown other than just her back. It's a lot heavier this season than last season in both the LGBTQ plus nature, as it's kind of a more driving story focus rather than last season where it was just one episode. And so those are things to kind of keep in mind in watching the season. It's going to be a 5 out of 5 here. Moving on to substances, this is another heavier category contained within this season. There is a lot of drinking stronger drinks, whether it's a bourbon or whiskey or some of those things contained throughout multiple episodes of the show. Although the primary use of alcohol in this season is to clean. So whether it is to clean a arrow or clean a blade, some of those things just to help kind of disinfect before cutting or doing other things that are a part of this season. So that's the primary use of it. There is also some references to some drugs, primarily weed is referenced throughout the show, as well as the use of it. So there are several things throughout this season, a lot of different moving pieces here, and a lot more than last season, which did have a good amount. This one has even more. Once again, they're really just dialing into all of these conviction areas just a little bit stronger. This one's going to be a 4 out of 5 here. Our next category is profanity, and just like last season, there is plenty of language throughout this season, although I believe it's a little bit less this season. There still is a ton here. Obviously, to start off with, there are multiple uses of the F-bomb, F-word, but the other words used here, of course, hell is mentioned, the DA word is used, the SH word is used, the BI word is used as well, both written and said. On top of that, I'm sure there are other words here, like the DI word, the A word, a few other words here. It's not as heavy as last season, but again, just because of the multiple uses of the F-bomb along with all the other language present through this season, we're going to give this a 5 out of 5 here as well. And lastly, intense/horror sequencing. This is not a horror show, which means there are no horror scenes present. However, it does lead into the kind of thriller, spooky aspect. So it may not explicitly be a horror show. It does have some kind of horror-esque elements contained within the series, particularly when dealing with obviously some of the infected, whether it's stalkers or clickers or some of those things that are contained within this show and this season. So it is pretty creepy at times, but most of the intensity comes from human versus human violence. There are multiple torture scenes throughout this entire season. There is one in episode 2 and there is one in episode 4. They are as brutal as you'd expect. Like I mentioned, there's a guy who's beaten within an inch of his life. It's an intense sequence. There's a lot of emotion that comes with that sequence. There also is, of course, a really big action scene contained within episode 2 that is pretty intense, that can be pretty scary. On top of that, there's a lot of death and destruction within this show, whether it's death by infected, and infected are also just even grosser in this season. There is a lot of just beating people up, just senseless beating, whether it's the use of a golf club or it's the use of a pipe. There's just a lot of senseless beating, and it is pretty intense and to watch there as well. Although one of the bigger areas here, and I do want to be sensitive because this is a more sensitive topic, there is a lot of uses of nooses. There is a group of people that's contained within this season that uses a noose to really just absolutely kill people. It is brutal and it is also intense. Obviously, just watching several or seeing several people all hanging by their necks is not a pleasant sight. It is extremely intense and can be very emotional. Those are things to keep in mind. This is a very intense show in every sense of the word. It is emotional, but it is super graphic. It is super violent, and it is just so intense, not in the sense of like having you on the edge of your seat, but making you go, oh my gosh, I can't believe they did that sort of intense. The ones that kind of churn your stomach, that kind of intensity. And so once again, this is going to be a 5 out of 5. And so the score for this season of The Last of Us is going to be a 24 out of 25. This is the highest rated project we have ever had here on the channel. So what that means is if any of the areas we talked about are a little too high for you, or ultimately you feel uncomfortable based on the things we mentioned, or based on your own convictions, you can't handle the amount of violence or the amount of profanity or XYZ, the list goes on here. If anything we mentioned distracts or hinders your relationship with Jesus, don't worry about watching the show. I'll be honest, this was a little on the cusp even for me. In certain cases, I did have to fast forward through to get through certain scenes because there's certain stuff I don't need to see. Again, I have my own personal convictions just as you do. This is a guide and tool and resource to help you find good movies and shows to watch. So with that being said, let's dive into some theological themes that are present within season 2. And frankly, there really isn't much here. There's more contained within the last season than there is with this one. The only explicit thing I can think of off the top of my head is the fact that there's like a little dance, 2 girls kiss, and there's a guy who kind of makes a comment. He's like, this is a family event, we're in church. That's about it. Obviously, it's put in a light to demonize the relationship that develops in this season, and so that is something to keep in mind. Obviously with this season. So with that wrapped up, what are my thoughts on The Last of Us Season 2? And overall, I am disappointed in this season. It is not close to the original season. The original season's really, really good, even though I have not played the game. And the same is here for this season. I didn't play through The Last of Us Part 2. I know it is very mixed on its opinions of it because of certain character choices and certain things that they did to spice things up is probably the best way to put it. And they do a lot of those things in this season. And I'm frustrated because while I understand keeping to the game, and I do appreciate that, and I don't know if it deviates all that much from the game or not, I just don't think it was the right choice because, I mean, I'm not going to spoil it, but if you know what happens in The Last of Us Part 2, the game, it happens in the series. And it's emotional. Like, it's a much more emotional season. It's a much more intense season. But I don't know if it was the right move, especially when you have The Last of Us Season 3. There are rumors of where it's going to go, but it's like, is this the wisest course, the wisest road to go down? It's just kind of my question with this season in particular and future seasons at that. And for me, like, the script is pretty good. It's not phenomenal. The world building is still really, really good. Like, finding out just how people do or survive the apocalypse differently to obviously talking about the little kind of cult group that's a part of it. Like, the world building here is done well. And that's one thing the show does absolutely fantastic, is its world building. There are some really great episodes here. Episode 6 is really good. And episode 2 is really good, even though it's really emotional. But I'm also a sucker for big action sequences, so there is that too. But I can't help but feeling unfulfilled with this season. Sure, there's things that are pretty decent. There's things that are pretty good. The thrill, the suspense is all done solidly. But I can't help but feeling unfulfilled. Because they tried to do a cliffhanger. It didn't really feel like a cliffhanger. It just felt like, oh, this is where we're ending the season. Weird. I mean, it was just so frustrating to watch because, I mean, my expectations weren't super high, but they were higher because of the fact of what came before. And again, I've not played the game, so I come with that sort of perspective. But it just felt clunkier, it felt unfulfilled, and I leave with more questions and worried about the direction going forward. Especially if they're going to the direction of focusing on Abby and her character, because that's where rumors are suggesting, and some actors have openly said it. I don't know if that's the wisest idea, personally. Could it do well? Yes, I hope it succeeds. I really, really do, because it's got a lot of great actors in it. I mean, you got Jeffrey Wright, you got Catherine O'Hara, you got Caitlin Dever, you know, a cameo from Josh Peck. You got like all these really great actors, or just actors that you recognize, right? Even Danny Ramirez is in this. And so it's like, there's a lot of really cool things about the show, but it just feels very weak compared to last season. And so overall, I give this show a 7 out of 10. This is based on all of the scores of all of the episodes. Like I said, there are 2 really good episodes here, but for the most part, there is a lot of just kind of decent episodes to just meh. And so that is why the score is what it is. So it's a 24 out of 25 on the conviction meter. It is a 7 out of 10 on our review scale. Those are my thoughts, so let me know yours down in the comments below. Let's chat all things The Last of Us Season 2 in the comments. While you're down there, consider hitting that like and subscribing for us, joining our community here on YouTube. It just helps to send us out into the algorithm, allows us to reach more Christians to utilize their convictions to ultimately follow Jesus better. That is the goal of this channel, so feel free to do that for us. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend time with us here. We truly appreciate it. It means the absolute world to us. But before you go, there's a few video recommendations over here, one of which is the last season of The Last of Us. The first one definitely had a much positive reaction to that one than I did this one. But if you want to check it out, it's over there. We'll see you then.